Temple Sports Hour here, taking you all the way up till 1 o'clock. 12:19 is the time. RB Fogel, I'm Kieran McCauley. Big day tomorrow. Yes, we don't have the Flyers, but we have something that can quench our hockey thirst, and that's Team USA, the men's, kicking off their campaign tomorrow. Yeah. Now, I have a question for you. I hate to bring up 2010, because really what good happened in hockey that year? The Flyers lost the Stanley Cup, and Sidney Crosby won the gold medal. Mm-hmm. But I was having a little debate with John last night about a certain topic, and I'd like to hear your opinion on it. Sidney Crosby in 2009 wins the Stanley Cup. He hoists it for the city of Pittsburgh. It's all excitement and happy and lovey and exciting. In 2010, he wins the gold medal. He beats the U.S. Olympic team, a team we were rooting for, a team we actually had a personal tie to. What was more painful for you?
Gold medal game, for sure.
Really?
Yes,
how so?
Exactly. Because Canada was going up against a team that I was rooting for in the U.S. In 2009, Sidney Crosby wins. Not sure who he played, but
Red
it
Wings.
wasn't the Flyers. You know, if the Flyers lost to Sidney Crosby and the Penguins, say, in the Eastern Conference Finals that year, I would be devastated. That would affect me more than the Canada-U.S. But since he lifted it up, all right, he won the Stanley Cup, but it's not beating the Flyers. And he beat our country. You know, that's just huge. That's huge.
So here's my point. I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. Because what would you rather see, the Flyers win the Stanley Cup or the Team USA win the gold medal?
Flyers win the Cup.
Absolutely, because we're diehard Flyers fans. Now, so I reverse it. I love the Flyers more. I bleed orange, and I hate the Pittsburgh Penguins more than anyone. I always joke around and say I root for the teams that play the Rangers, the Penguins, and I root for the Flyers. So, to me, the last thing I want to see is Sidney Crosby win the Stanley Cup. Because, like I said, reversing it around, I'd rather see the Flyers win, so I don't want to see the Penguins win. And to me, the other point is, Sidney Crosby and the Penguins of Pittsburgh, you run into more Pittsburgh animals in this state of Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh fans all over the place. There's slime balls. Okay, you run into them more, and they're going to rub it in your face more. Oh, the Penguins won the Stanley Cup. Pens won the Stanley Cup. Sidney Crosby, MVP. How many Canadian fans you really run into say, remember the 2010 Olympics? Has it happened to you in the 4 years?
No,
not at all.
It doesn't. I mean, that's a good point, but that was just, it meant more, the gold medal game, than 2009 Stanley Cup final to me. You know, I remember losing that game. I wouldn't have remembered that Crosby won in 2009 unless you brought it up right then. So, I mean, it's just a bigger event in 2010, and it just took a piece of my heart with it. So, no, 9, it didn't. So that's what I compare it to.
One point I want to make about the Olympics, because I don't want to sell the Olympics short. I want the U.S. to win so badly. I was yelling at the TV today when the women were playing Canada.
I caught the last minute of that.
That was a good game.
It was.
I mean, it's not as great as what we're going to see tomorrow, well, hopefully. I mean, but it was a good, competitive game. And I was saying to John last night that you put me in front of the television, whether it's girls, boys, any sport, pretty much at any level, as long as there's a flow to it and there's a chance of goals being scored besides soccer, because there are no goals scored. I can watch girls lacrosse, I can watch field hockey, I can watch hockey. It doesn't matter. I can watch as long as there's a flow and the puck's not just rolling all over the place or a ball is not rolling all over the place. I can watch it.
We're sports guys. I can watch anything.
I love a sport with goals being scored constantly and the celebrations and stuff. I love that.
Exactly.
Now, here's the one thing I want to say about the Olympics, because I got a little bit off topic there. I think what makes the Olympics so special is how the whole country comes together as one. What players, fans together and buy into this as one nation. Because if we remember back in the 2010 Olympics, the Flyers, Team USA was down by a goal. In the final seconds of that game, the U.S. had pulled the goalie, and here's what happened in that stretch of time.
Patrick Kane able to filter it across. Ryan Suter has it there through one that rattled around behind. Pavelski there, slipped one in front. Kane a shot off at they score! Zach Parise out of a net bounce scramble, and the game is tied!
So that's what you live for. Those moments like that, and you just hope that can be duplicated this Olympics.
I'll never forget that Sunday afternoon. Me and my dad were sitting there again, and I remember we high-fived each other. And it was amazing because a Devil scored. Zach Parise was the captain of the New Jersey Devils.
It's just so secondary right then.
It was amazing that it didn't even enter my mind at that point. I was just so excited that they had scored and sent it into overtime. I really thought they were going to win that game, and it was magical. And I think that right there is a perfect example why the Olympics are special, why this hockey is special, and why people in the United States really should buy in and invest in it, because we're all in this together.
Exactly. But looking overall at the Olympic for the Americans, it's been an overall disappointment so far.
34 years.
We're down by 5 medals to Norway. It's been a disappointment for Shaun White. No Lindsey Vonn. Bodie Miller loses. We only have 7 medals, and we're relying on this hockey team to produce something.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the Team USA really only got 1 medal, and it was hockey. Bam, I'm happy. Gold medal. I have to stress that. It has to be a gold medal. But you're right, that's special. And you even said at the start of the show, the Olympics start tomorrow.
Yes.
They kind of do. And I feel the same way sometimes about the summer games, too. It's like once the basketball team starts, that's when it really kicks into gear. Because now you're not only watching Team USA, but you're watching Canada. You're watching how Russia's doing. You're watching how Slovenia and Slovakia and Russia, like I said, the 3 teams that are in our pool, how they're doing. How is that going to affect the USA? So there's a lot more on. It's not just women's curling. I was watching women's curling last night. It was China and Russia. And needless to say, I was asleep in 10 minutes.
Yeah, seriously. I was watching cross country. And I know the announcer was just going absolutely berserk, but it wasn't getting me. I mean, this is girls skiing on flat surface.
Well, I'll tell you what. I like this USA team. We go over the roster a little bit. Look at their first line. JVR, who should still be a flyer, but that's a discussion for another day. Mm-hmm. Joe Pavelski and Phil Kessel.
Yeah,
I like that first line.
They have speed this year, and in past years they've kind of been not as fast as some years. And with the Olympics, it's 15 feet wider the ice, so you got to take advantage of guys with speed. And I think this year they have it.
And then you look at their second line: Parise, Baquez, and Ryan Callahan. I like it.
Oh, my God, that's great depth. I mean, line 2 is just as good as line 1, arguably. Hey, that's awesome.
And then you have Max Pacioretty, Ryan Kessler, and Patrick Kane. I like it.
Yeah,
I
you're
like
captain on the third line.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. The real question I got for you is the goaltending situation. You
Yes.
got 3 very reliable goalies in Jimmy Howard. You got Ryan Miller and Jonathan Quick, all starters in the NHL. Who do you go with?
Well, they just announced today Jonathan Quick's the guy.
Okay.
I agree with that. You saw how he stood on his head in that Stanley Cup 2 years ago, and really how well he even played in the playoffs last year. So he's younger. He's a little fresher. He's probably had the best year out of all 3 goalies.
Yeah.
The thing also that you had to add in there is Ryan Miller's the most experienced. The past 2 Olympics, or the past 2 Olympics, he's been your guy.
Exactly.
Jimmy Howard's kind of an afterthought because he struggled this year. I think he's just kind of your third stringer. You're bringing him in there just for the experience, and he's not a bad third option.
Yeah, and he got
the
hurt
dude can
this
still
year.
play.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, he's actually back up now in Detroit after his injury. He didn't get the spot back, but yeah, Jonathan, you can't go wrong with Jonathan Quick.
No, you can't.
You really can't.
And he's a young guy. He's excited. He's ready to go there. I think that's a great move.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have been.
I didn't hear that today.
Ryan Miller, he's on the worst team in the NHL. The Sabres, I'm not saying it's all his fault, but you have to factor in some kind of consideration, don't you? I mean, you can't say, oh, well, the Sabres, worst team in the NHL. Let's go with that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
He's in a culture of losing. Let's go to a guy who's won a Stanley Cup with a younger guy, like I've said 8 times in the past minute. Let's go with that guy. I'm excited. I've always liked Jonathan Quick as a goaltender, and I'm telling you, I like this U.S. team.
I do too. I'm a little afraid of like a slow start maybe because of the travel and getting there. 20-hour flight. I mean, it's 20 hours. That's huge, and you only had 1 practice under your belt, so that scares me a little bit in this first game, especially against Slovakia, who actually can contend for a medal this year.
They definitely can, but we feel good about Team USA. Let me throw Canada's roster at you. This is where he's just grown. First line, Chris Kunitz, Sidney Crosby, Jeff Carter. In an ideal world, all 3 of those guys would skate into each other and be out for the Olympics. That'd be my ideal day. Second line, Patrick Marleau, Ryan Getzlaf, Corey Perry. Third line, Patrick Sharp, Jonathan Toews, Rick Nash. Jonathan Toews is on the third line.
Yeah,
my God.
That's an all-star team. It really is.
Yeah, Patrice Bergeron and John Tavares on the fourth line. And then you look at their defense, their first line, Duncan Keith, Shea Weber. My God.
That's insane. It really is.
It's ridiculous. It's like, are you kidding me? That's where all of a sudden you're not feeling so good.
Exactly. And correct me if I'm wrong, but U.S. plays every team once, right? It's kind of a round robin to get the seedings
within their pool. So they play
Okay.
Slovakia tomorrow, then they have Russia, then they have Slovenia.
Okay, so we wouldn't see Canada unless it's
an elimination kind of game.
Okay.
I hope they said. I have not looked at it. I hope they said Set it up though that we're only playing them for the gold medal.
Yeah, right.
They have to do it, right? I mean, you can't throw them in there like that.
Yeah, volume 2. I mean, I want to see it again. No doubt about it.
Ideally, the U.S. has to win two. They got to go at least 2-1.
Okay. Yep. And Russia. I mean, it's definitely
Ovechkin,
the toughest opponent. Yeah.
You got Ovechkin. You got Kovalchuk. That's pretty serious stuff right now. You got Malkin too out there. I mean,
the Russians can play hockey.
And the thing I was scary is. And any hockey expert could come in here and talk to us about it. But and I was looking at all these teams. You got a guy playing. They got half their roster playing in Russia, which doesn't necessarily mean they're not good enough to go to the NHL. They might just be getting paid more to stay in their home country.
Exactly.
So what's kind of scary is it's like, all right, I mean, we don't know these guys. Mm-hmm. And like you brought up, a 20-hour flight. These guys are used to Russia. This is their culture. This is where they're from. They didn't have to travel 20 hours to get to the Sochi Games.
It's a huge factor.
And not to mention the crowd's going to be waiting for them.
Huge.
It's going to be. You're telling me, it reminds me of Canada in 2010, how bad those Canadian fans wanted to win the gold medal. It's the same thing with Russia. They're all bought in. They're all invested. This is it for them. This is really all they care about.
Exactly.
And that's what's scary about it. Mm-hmm. So I just look back on those 06 games where the U.S. could not score a goal. It was some of the most boring hockey to watch. I like this team, though. I'm buying in and I'm investing, and I'm saying this team is going to make a run this year.
I agree with you.
34 years.
Yeah.
34 years they've gone without a gold medal. You're telling me they're not due for something?
That's insane. Oh, yeah. Every 4 years, you just look forward to this, and I can't wait to get it started.
The Winter Games. 215-204-9449. We're going to take another break here on the show. When we get back, I don't want this snow day. People might be saying I'm crazy. I'm not. I'll tell you why. Me and RB are going to argue to the death about it because he doesn't believe me. But I'll tell you what. I don't want it. Time in the WHIP studios is 12:37.